for survivors of suicide loss. I lost my brother Jamie. I lost my cousin Chip. I lost a brother-in-law David. And that's been in the last 18 years. And that's what propelled my journey here today.
Hi, my name's Brooke Price, and I lost my son, Mitchell, a little bit over 4 years ago. He died right after Christmas in 2017. He was 15, and this takes me right back just seeing all your faces out there, because a couple days after he died, we had a gathering at my church in Chula Vista, and there were a lot of the kids from the community. It was Christmas vacation, but everybody knew what had happened. And I can remember looking at him, at all of his friends, and the kids he went to school with, and the kids he was in youth group with. And I want to tell you guys right now, we're going to be talking about a lot of things today, but I want to tell you right now that what happened, it was not because of anything you did or anything that you didn't do. Okay? So I just want to start with that. So there.
My friend Kim.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here. My name is Kim Bozart. I'm actually a licensed clinical social worker. I have been the board chair at SOSL for the last 5-6 years, and I work full-time for a program called PERT. I've been there for the last 13 years, and I've been in the mental health community here in San Diego for the last 20. So, like everyone's saying, we're going to hopefully give you a lot of good information, be helpful and supportive for you tonight, because what you being here tonight is really starting the journey that's going to help that healing, that's going to go and carry you through a lifetime. So thank you all for joining us and for including us in this.
And my friend Lauren.
My name's Lauren Cook, and I'm the Executive Director at Survivors of Suicide Loss. Working with foster youth, we lost 3 foster youth in an 18-month period. My child was also at the same high school when Brooke lost her son. Her husband was his teacher. Didn't do anything wrong. I want to keep that going. And so we're here today. I'm so glad to see so many of you. Looking forward to the conversation.
And Kim forgot to mention who she lost, so we want to make sure she includes that.
So 4.5 years ago, I actually lost my friend Lori, her son and my daughter. They were 4 and 5 at the time, and just starting school together. And then 2 years ago, I actually lost a coworker who was also a licensed clinician in the community. He lost his battle to depression.
So tonight, I know there's a lot of questions, and one of the questions after a suicide is why? And I want you to know there's no answer to that. We think we know the why sometimes, but there's no answer to that. Each one of us have walked that journey. And so if that's you today and you're wondering, what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? Being a friend to a friend was a great thing. Like Brooke said, you did nothing wrong. So get comfortable with the why. I do want to ask, and I just want you to shout out, who would like to share some emotions you have felt this past couple weeks since the losses that you guys have? So somebody just yell out, because I'm going to tell you every single emotion is probably going to be covered. Sadness. Regret. Grief. Confused. Helpless. Say it again. Depression. Okay. Anger. Tears. And I'm going to tell you something. Tears are welcome here tonight. You'll probably see my boss here crying the most. But tears are welcome here. And I want you to know right now, tears are always welcome when you're talking about loss. Stress, absolutely. Anybody else? Disappointment. Okay. Over here, I saw a hand. Fear, yeah. Guilt, yeah. Okay. So those are just some of the feelings that people who've lost someone to suicide feel. And you probably have felt all of those, or maybe just one. Grief is difficult. Grief is messy. Grief is ugly. There's no right or wrong way to grieve, I will tell you that. So however you're grieving, it's acceptable. Your friends shouldn't say, hey, don't grieve like that. No, it's acceptable to grieve. The only way it's not acceptable is if you're angry at somebody and you take that anger out on somebody. Or you lash out at them and hit them. That's not acceptable, all right? But I want you to know feelings are acceptable, and I want you to know, get comfortable with your feelings. And sometimes we don't even know what's going on inside us. Just feel different. Talk to somebody about that. I don't really know what I'm feeling. Be comfortable. Be comfortable sharing that. What? Oh, getting mic lessons here. And then there's some concerns after a loss. One of those concerns might be, well, I didn't do enough, or I didn't say something. Or it might have been, I'm concerned about somebody else. What do I do with that? Well, tonight we're going to teach you how to deal with that. And then we want to teach you some warning. We want to teach you what to be looking for. We want to teach you how to get that help, how to start that conversation. And I will let you know that I know the school's doing something on May 10th. Okay, I would encourage you all to be there. I don't know if they're inviting everybody, but I know that they're inviting students. And if you have a student that goes to that school, ask them what they learned. This is not a one-time conversation. This is a lifetime conversation. Okay? Asking your kids, hey, what happened at school today? Now, okay, I'm going to just talk about the youth back here. I'm glad you're all here. Because I know as a teenager, we all say, well, nothing. Right? You had teenagers. You don't have teenagers yet. You have teenagers. I know my teenager would say, nothing. What did you learn? Nothing. But I want you to, one of the things I encourage you to do every single day, if you're a parent, if you're a child, share a joy you had every single day. There's joys everywhere, every single day. And share a struggle. What was that struggle you had today? How did you resolve that? How did you deal with it? Talk about the emotion that it brings up. This helps start the conversation, all right? The other thing is, it is okay to talk about, I had a bad day. It's okay to say, I don't know what I'm feeling today. It's okay to say, I need help. How many of you before, okay, and this is probably just for the adults, how many of you before COVID knew how to use Zoom? Ooh, just a few. And when we didn't know how to get on Zoom, right, we asked somebody, right? We probably asked our youth because they know how to do all that, right? But I'm telling you, if COVID didn't teach us anything, it taught us to ask for help. It is okay to ask for help, all right? And you're going to hear that over and over and over today. So what do we do when somebody's struggling? We're going to learn how to ask them. We're going to learn to some of the warning signs. I'm going to pass this to my friend Kim, because she's going to talk about some of the warning signs.
So there's going to be some general warning signs that can apply to all age groups, and then there's some things specific to our youth, and even our adolescent, and then our transitional age youth up to, age 24, 25, because everyone's experiencing different things in life through different age groups. But if you start seeing someone withdrawing and not really socially active anymore like they used to be, maybe they used to come to youth group and now they're starting to miss some of those sessions, or they're skipping out on some classes. Maybe they used to text you and now they're really slow to respond and they're not engaging in those conversations. Or they used to get on video games and there was video chatting with that, or talking through on those gaming systems, and they're not doing that anymore. Or you might see them be engaging in riskier activity. Maybe they have their driver's license and now they're suddenly driving really fast down these windy roads, or late at night they're now driving without the headlights on in the car. They're seeing how fast the car will go. Some of those risk-taking behaviors show that they're pushing the envelope a little more. Or you might hear them start talking about, oh, what would happen if I'm not here anymore? Or sometimes you hear people talking about, who do you think would come to my funeral? Or would people care if I'm gone? So now you're hearing them talk about what they're thinking about if they're not here anymore. You may see people with a change in their appetite. Maybe they're starting to eat a lot more, and it's that mindless eating, and now they're starting to gain weight. But more, we usually see it on the flip side, where you see people start losing weight. Their clothes are becoming baggy on them. They lose their appetite. They're not hungry anymore. There's a disconnect between their belly feeling hungry and their mind saying, hey, we need to feed our bodies. You may also see people are not sleeping as much as they used to, or they're staying in bed a lot longer than they had. So instead of getting up at 10 in the morning, they're now staying in bed until 1 in the afternoon. But even though they had 14 hours of sleep, technically, or at least they were in their bed, they're not well rested. They're very tired, lack of energy. We see low motivation, so things that they used to like to do, they no longer have that energy to do it. They may start withdrawing from family. They may not come out of their room for dinner at night. Those conversations, we're gonna give you some starters on how to have and carry on with your loved ones, your friends, your neighbors. They refuse to participate in that, so there's not some of those comments again. If you see people searching things on the internet, so unfortunately, we all have these mini computers in the palm of our hands as we go about our daily business. So it's a little bit harder to see what people are searching, what people are looking at. But if there's a new fascination with a knife collection, or all of a sudden they have these swords that they're getting, or if they're starting to talk about firearms, different than maybe it's not our usual hunting, it's not the rifles we use, but it's something else. If there's a change in that discussion, so it's really going to be a change in their behavior. It's going to be a change in how they normally go about their day or their week, that you're starting to know that shift. They also can start giving away some possessions. So they may have, a favorite guitar that they play with, and they love playing music, and now all of a sudden they're asking, hey, do you want that? Yeah, I don't need it anymore. Maybe I'll get a new one. They're giving it some excuse of why they don't need it, or anything that has significant meaning to them. With our older population, if all of a sudden someone's starting to get all their affairs in order, so now they're getting their will ready, they are talking about, who's going to get what possessions when I'm not here, here's where everything is, oh, it's in a nice folder in this file cabinet. Well, what's changed where now all of a sudden we're focusing on that, or we're changing it to getting it updated, and it's not just the usual, hey, this is what I'm going to do, we've been talking about this as a family. So that's these are the changes throughout. A lot of anger can happen, or we may start to use drugs or alcohol. So now all of a sudden we're progressing with what we're dabbling into and what we're experimenting with. And we're talking to our friends of, hey, you should try this, or let's do that. And you're like, no, man, this is not what we should be doing. But now they're upping the ante with those behaviors. If you see some self-injurious behaviors, so there might be some burning, some cutting, and a lot of times people that engage in these behaviors, they do it because they're trying to feel some physical pain. They're in so much emotional pain that they want to give it an outlet. But they're also pretty good at hiding it. So it might be on the stomach, it might be on the legs, it might be on the arms up high, where it's not really visible for everyone. But you may see this in the changing room before you go to PE. If you're in the summer and someone's wearing really heavy sweatshirts and it's 100 degrees out, you're gonna say, hey, what's up with this clothing choice? This isn't what you usually wear. So again, we're looking for some of those changes in behaviors. As family members, sometimes because we're so close to our loved ones, we do miss some of these subtle signs that are going on because we see them day to day, or we might not notice that weight loss until it's pretty extreme. But sometimes if we don't see people for a few weeks or a month, those changes are going to be pretty noticeable. So we're always going to be, after today, we're always going to be watching one another and monitoring and just taking extra notice of how can I reach out and take care of each other, so we can have that conversation to see if we do have to go further. Is this a concern that we are maybe contemplating suicide or we're going down that path? How can we intervene to then stop that path from continuing and get on a better, healthier one? And it's just showing your love and support for others. Any other signs that?
Do you want to talk about maybe some signs that you saw after? Or no?
I can a little bit, yeah. You know, it's interesting just listening to, you know, what you were saying, Kim, because with my particular case, with my son, there weren't any of the big warning signs that we see on the lists. There were subtle things, but it was very easy to overlook them because of the time of year. It was right after Christmas. He just finished his sophomore year fall semester. He had some AP classes. He was working really hard. So yeah, he's going to sleep more. Yeah, he's going to play computer games more. So there were a lot of things that were sort of subtle differences that I didn't recognize, I think, because of other things that were going on. I think that the reckless behavior is a really big one, especially with teens. And I'm going to say this to you guys, and believe it or not, all of us who are not teens anymore did dumb, stupid stuff when we were teenagers. We really did. And it's certainly not that everybody who does something reckless once in a while or does something stupid is suicidal. So I don't mean to over-dramatize that. But what Kim was saying, if you see friends that are, you know, maybe drinking more, maybe, you know, there's some drug use that's increased, maybe increased sexual activity, those are all changes that can be reckless behavior. So pay attention to that stuff. And don't be afraid to even ask your friends, you know, how are you feeling? What's going on? And even if you're a little bit concerned, you can ask them, you know, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about killing yourself? That sounds super extreme to a lot of us, but that's one of the most important questions that you can ask somebody who could possibly be suicidal. Because if they are, and they're hiding it, then that could be the relief that they need and kind of the gateway to a conversation. It can be a huge relief to them to go, okay, yeah, actually, there is something. So, again, look for a lot of those subtle signs. Don't ignore the subtle things and just say, well, it's just this, this, and this. Have those hard conversations. Because really think about it, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to go, oh, no, I'm fine. And that's the worst thing that's going to happen if you confront them and nothing's going on. So don't be afraid to ask those questions.
So Kim talked about the warning signs, but there's some other warning signs, is sometimes how they say it. Sometimes they might say something like, well, I'm going to kill myself. Well, of course, that would get our attention. But a lot of times it's very subtle. My family wouldn't miss me. Who would care if I wasn't here anymore? I won't be around much longer. You know, there's a phrase that we hear a lot now. It's like, oh, you're killing me. And I say, what's killing you? We hear that a lot with our youth. Oh, I'm dying here, or you're killing me. And I ask them, what's killing you? Or because, you know, and they usually say, I'm just laughing. Well, are you laughing on the outside and dying on the inside? That's my concern. And so I would ask you, what's really going on with you? And I will tell you, as a survivor who's lost several family members, that this is something families never, ever get over. We don't. You know, a lot of times people think, well, they'll just grieve for a couple days and then they'll be good. 18 years later, Everybody here tonight is going to learn something they've never heard me say. Before my brother took his life, I had another cousin who took his life, probably 4 years before that. So it's been about 22 years. I didn't know that cousin, so it didn't really affect me. I knew his grandma, who was my aunt, but I didn't really know that cousin. So it didn't really affect me. I was removed from but I saw what it did to my aunt. And so I want you to know that if you think, oh, they'll get over it, we don't. There's a saying in the suicide loss community is, and we say this a lot, that person was struggling. They wanted their pain to end. Well, really, their pain doesn't end. What they do is they transfer it to the people left behind. And each and every one of you have a piece of that pain. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart when I got the call from Brendan that there was 2 losses here, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I said to him, I really would love to be there to support you. And he's like, we'll pay for you to come. It's not being paid. What it was is I was trying to rearrange my schedule to be here and trying to get a team here, because this is what we do day to day to day. And so yes, our heart breaks that there are 2 families and all of you grieving. But you know what else is? We don't want to see another death, especially by suicide. And so that's why we're here tonight. We're here to teach you, like Brooke was saying, it may seem, how many of you have heard the saying, well, I didn't want to say anything because I thought I might plant the idea in their head? It's a notion that, oh, I don't want to say anything because then I'll make them think about suicide. If you think that they're suicidal, ask. Like Brooke said, maybe they'll just be no. A lot of times people say, I don't want to ask because I don't want them to be angry. I will tell you, I would love to have had my cousin be angry at me because I asked him. But I didn't ask because I lost my cousin 10 days after my brother. And I didn't know. I didn't know that suicide can happen in another family because someone else in our family died by suicide. So I tell you, if you are sitting here today and you are struggling, or you're having thoughts of suicide, I want you to know there is help out there. Don't leave here tonight without talking to somebody. If you're afraid to go to your parents or you're afraid to go to your youth leader, come to us. There's other counselors here tonight. We want you to come here. We don't want to have to hear that there was another loss. And I know that seems like, well, not me. But I know that there may be somebody here struggling. There may be somebody here that attempted and never told anybody. If that was you, I want you to know that you still need help. You need to be able to talk to somebody about that. Get that help. It is okay to get help. You will hear me say that probably 1,000,000 times tonight. But it's okay. There's nothing wrong with getting help.
Can I add something onto that?
Yes, please.
And just not only is it okay to get help, but no matter what kind of place you're in your headspace, you can get better. You can get better. And if you're in that really dark place, you don't have to stay that way forever. And I think sometimes it feels like, I am never going to feel better. This is never going to get better. And that's, I think, the road that people go down sometimes. But you can get better. So ask for help.
So we're just, so again, if you're thinking, or you have a friend, and I know that sometimes friends say something to somebody. If you have a friend that's thinking about taking their life, ask them, are you thinking about killing yourself? And I tell you, I'm the direct type of person. I'm not going to say, are you thinking about hurting yourself? I'm going to just say, are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about ending your life? I'm going to use one of those 3 phrases. And the reason why is because I want that person to know I'm talking about life or death. And I want everybody in here have a cell phone. I want you all to pull it out right now. Yep, pull your phone out in church. I'm going to give you a phone number. And I want you to put this phone number in there. And I'm going to say it a couple times. The number is 888-724-7240. Again, 888, first three numbers are the same, 888-724. They're open 724. Again, 724-0. All right, 888-724-7240. That is the San Diego Access and Crisis line. Now, do I need to be in crisis to call them? No. I could have just had a really bad day and I just need to talk to somebody. You can call that number. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and on election year, they're open 366 days a year. But they are trained clinicians willing to help you. If you have a friend that's struggling and you want to ask them that question and you're like, I don't really know how to do this, you can say to your friend, hey, I have a question I want to ask you, but I don't know how to do it. Can we do a phone call together? And you call that phone number with them, and they'll ask them. You're like, I'm concerned about my friend. Will you ask them? And they'll do that. And they'll tell you where to get help.
Michelle, are they going to track your call and show up at your house?
Oh, no. So when I call up, the first thing they're going to ask me for is my phone number. Okay, they are never going to call you back unless you get disconnected. Your number is not sold. They're not going to show up at your house. They're going to talk to you. That's all they're going to do. And they're going to get you the help, or your friend the help they need. All right? So, y'all got a card, right? I know there are some questions here, and if you have a question, hold it up. Lauren will come. There's no questions? No way. All right, thank you. I was going to say, this is the first time we've ever done something and never had a question. Yes. So pass your cards. If you have a card that has a question on it, pass it, and we'll start. We'll be answering questions as long as we need to be.
So I just want to add on to what Michelle was saying. When you do have the conversation with someone and you think they might be contemplating suicide, we do want you to ask those questions directly, because killing yourself and just wanting to hurt yourself are very different, right? So if I ask if you want to hurt yourself and your intention is to take your life, you can say no, and then I'm done with that conversation because I think we're all good. But really, you have a different plan in mind, and I just didn't ask about it. I didn't choose those right words. So we want you to be very specific, because what we've learned is then that opens up the conversation. You are giving permission to that person to share what they're really feeling, what's going on with them, and that you're willing to hear it and that you want to listen to them. So you asking directly, if you are wrong and they're not feeling that way, great. Now you know and you have that peace of mind. But if they are feeling that way, even better, because now you can then support them in getting to talking to someone that can really help them out.
So here's a question. What do we do if we are feeling detached from our emotions? That's you, Kim.
I get this one. This is going to look different for everyone, because all of our emotions are very individualized, right? I can share, after I lost my friend, I was really angry. Some of my other friends were very tearful and very sad, and I was expressing it in very different ways. And it actually took me quite a few weeks to realize where my agitation and irritation was coming from. It took me a while to put to words what my adult feelings were. This is normal. Feeling detached, though, if you have that insight, you're already a few steps ahead of the game. You are connected to your feelings in a sense, because you're recognizing that that's what's going on. It's also a great point to then reach out to someone and say, hey, this is what's going on with me. That's not normally how I'm feeling, or this isn't normally how I manage maybe my daily stressors, how I'm feeling, what's happening in life. And then you can come up with a plan or the best course of action with someone. Not every answer is going to be, I need medication, I need to talk to a therapist, I need, all these different steps. That treatment plan that we call it, has a very clinical term to it, but it's very individualized to each person. Just because I go and see a therapist doesn't mean I'm going to be recommended to take meds, doesn't mean they're going to make me take meds. I have a very active voice in that. So know if you do seek out some treatment, it's a partnership with that provider. It's not them telling you what to do. It's you sharing what's going on and then coming up with a plan together, right? So get as many people involved that you feel safe with. So your family should really be involved. Parents are your huge support. I know we don't feel that that's true sometimes, but they're the ones that also can help get you connected to that.
I do want to add one more thing to that, is when you're doing your treatment plan, if a doctor does choose to put you on medication and you start having some side effects. Now, when they give you medication, they give you a bag and it has a long, 10 pages of things that go on with that medication. I encourage you to read over the side effects, but if you start having some of those side effects, you need to let the doctor know. They don't hand you a prescription and say, hey, take this and call me if you have side effects. Most doctors don't. So if you have side effects, let your parents or you, if you're an adult, let your doctor know. Some people just say, well, I just got to muscle through it. No, you need to let your doctor know. And especially if one of those side effects is suicidal thoughts or ideation. So it has to be talked about.
And don't just stop taking it
Yes.
because you're not feeling good. Talk to your doctor. You can't just stop taking it.
So two questions?
What do you say to someone that has already tried to take their life?
I'm glad you're still here.
I love you. I'm sorry it got that bad that you thought you couldn't reach out for help. I'm here to help you. And you know what? I love you I don't care if it's your friend, if it's your mother, your sister, your brother, your parent. It's okay to say you love them. Let them know. And I'm glad you're here.
Your life matters. Your life matters.
And you can also thank them for sharing and say, I really appreciate you feeling comfortable with sharing that very personal information and for opening up to me. How can I help you? What can I do to support you? So asking them what they need, because maybe they're the best ones that know, right? Instead of us saying, how can I solve it? Don't rush to solve it, because we have to understand from them what they're going through before we can work with that person who's had that attempt on what would be helpful for them moving forward. We want to make sure we're working off of their agenda, not our own personal agendas.
Wait, can I add something to that? A lot of times when somebody attempts to take their life, and I hate to say it, a lot of times people make it about me. Well, how could you do that to me? You need to remove you from that situation. It is not about you. It is about that person who attempted. I'm so sorry you did. I'm glad you shared that with me. How can I help you? I love you. I want to get you the help you need. Take you out of that situation. It has nothing to do with you. Okay?
I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick. So what some of the latest research has shown is that when someone is really in the depth of those suicidal thoughts, those urges, when they're most intense, last for about 20 minutes. And that's it, 20 minutes. And then if they have not acted on it, something has been beneficial for them. Something has worked. Thank you. So this is where coming up with creating, we call it time and distance, some harm reduction. So making sure if someone is prescribed medication or our medicine cabinets don't have tons of prescription bottles sitting in there. If we're on some medication, maybe we hide our own meds so our kids don't have access to that in the medicine cabinet. If our loved one is prescribed medication, maybe we help monitor it. Sometimes we get little mini safes and we only give them 1 day or 1 week of meds at a time. It sounds really simple, but this could make a difference. They actually prescribe, some providers will give medication in these little pill packets. So it's kind of a box, little cardboard box, and each pill is in its own little bubble pack. Well, by the time you've popped out 30 plus days worth, that's a lot of time to be thinking about what's going on. And that's been a huge deterrent from very impulsive, quick overdoses. Little things like that. We talk about weapons being in the home, having them locked up in a safe, keeping the ammunition separate from where that weapon is, not giving our youth access to the codes. Those can be really powerful steps. We're not saying get rid of guns. We're just saying when you do have them, having them kept a little bit safer can also make the difference between life and death. So just little things to think about with that.
Okay, here's one. And this person is asking for practicals. How do I help my kids grieve the loss of a dear friend to suicide? Practical things to do.
Can you say that again?
How do you get you can read it?
I was cheating and reading it.
I know. I have one job, guys. It's to hold the cards.
I couldn't help it.
Share stories. Share stories about that person. Let them talk about their friend. Encourage them, and I shared this with Brendan earlier, was the family that lost their loved one. Many of you knew them. And think about when we just all celebrated Easter. Many of us had a bunch of family people there, and every person there has a different experience. And every one of us has a different experience with that person that died. So write those stories down. Share them with their parents. Let them know. And when you talk about them by name. You know, when I talk with Brooke, I will say, tell me something about Mitchell. Sharing their name, but also then let them talk about how they're feeling. Today I'm feeling really sad. Or today I really miss them. 18 years later, there are sometimes I really miss my brother. I just want to pick up the phone and go, oh, I can't tell him that. But let them talk about it. Let them share their feelings. Let them share about what they're going through, right or wrong, And, we all grieve differently. Don't tell them they can't grieve like that. They can grieve like that.
Don't tell them they should be over it by now.
Yes.
Everyone's on their own journey. And it's not this nice little wave of emotions and you can say, okay, this month I'm going to be here, next month I should progress to here. It is like ping pong ball all over the place. You don't know how you're going to feel, right? We can't plan and prepare for that. Some days are going to be better than others. We might have a reminder, a song might come on the radio, we might be shopping in a store, we might see someone randomly that reminds us physically they look like the person we've lost, and it may take us back to a memory. But like Michelle was saying, honor that memory. Give yourself time to remember it, go down memory lane and be like, yeah, that was a really good time. I remember that. And then talk to someone. When Michelle thinks of calling her brother and stuff, she also then can pick up the phone and call someone else and say, hey, I just had this memory. Tell me one that you have. What comes to your mind? You can still celebrate birthdays, special dates. Just because someone's not physically with us doesn't mean that we can't remember and honor them from what we remember and the joys that we did have with them.
And I'll add to that, especially, again, if we're dealing with either family or very, very close friends of the person that was lost. As they were saying, be there for them. They need your support. When my son died, I had a huge community of support, and it was the difference in surviving and not myself. I'll tell you that right now. Because when you lose someone suddenly and they're gone, they're already gone. Your worst fear is that they're then going to be forgotten. So when people stop saying my son's name, it's like he's died again. So keep talking about him. Keep showing up. Keep showing up for your friends who have experienced this loss, because they need you, and they don't even know what they need. Like Kim was saying, they're up and down 1 minute to the next. So be there for them, but be understanding. And if you make plans to, okay, we're going to go get coffee or we're going to go for a walk, and they flake on you at the last minute, have a little grace with them and say, that's okay. Let's try again tomorrow. So be patient with them and what they're going through, but just show up for them. Be there for them. Don't wait for them to tell you, oh, today's the day I want to get together, you know. Shoot them a text. If you're thinking about them, send them a quick text. Say, hey, I'm just thinking about you today. You don't have to say anything else. But just knowing that people are there for you and supporting you just means the world. So,
I do have one other thing I want to say is, you know, when we're trying to be encouraging and honoring of families and our loved ones around us, I know in the church community we're very quick to say, well, God won't give you more than you can handle.
please don't say that.
Yeah.
Please don't say that heaven needed another angel. Please don't say that this was God's plan. Please don't say those things.
Yeah.
They're not helpful.
Not helpful.
They're not helpful.
You know, just do life. Do life with them. And let them talk. Talking, if you think about it, talking is healing. It's when they stop talking that you wonder if they're still healing. Or if they have no emotion. If they're like, well, I don't really know how I feel about it. I don't want to talk about it. Get them talking. Because what they're doing is they're pushing that down. They're pushing it down, and especially in our youth, we hear something that drives me insane. Our youth are resilient. Well, you know what happens? 10 years from now, it comes out. It comes out in mental health, drugs or alcohol, or they themselves could be suicidal. Get them talking now, okay?
This is from a youth. When is it time to know when to report to an adult if a friend confides in you? It's hard for a teen, like myself, to know when to tell on a friend. You're not telling on a friend. You're keeping your friend alive. You're helping your friend. You're finding help for them. If it's the access line that you put in your phone, then you both talk on the line together. You're not ever telling on someone when it's about their life. You love them. You don't want to be in a meeting like this thinking about your friend when they're gone. So it's a risk. It doesn't feel great, but will be better than this meeting. It'll be better than a time like that.
And I think one way you could look at it too is that if you do go to a parent, a teacher, a counselor, a coach, whoever is a trusted adult in your life, it's not so much that you're going and, you know, telling on them. You really are getting another opinion. Yeah. You're saying, you know, I'm really worried about this. I'm looking to you, this adult that I trust in some way. I want your opinion. Is this something we should do something else about? So maybe look at it that way too.
So we have three that are similar because it talks about social media. What role does social media play in suicide? Is there a way to vet social media so that trigger points don't occur that create situations like this? Why do people resort to suicide after being on social media? Social media is a big trigger. Can be.
Go ahead.
So, pros and cons to social media. We have found that during the pandemic, social media has been just as helpful as it has been hurtful for some individuals. So, for some people who are feeling suicidal and they've reached out in those chat rooms to other people who've maybe been there or have had those thoughts, and they've been able to get the support and get connected to treatment. But we also know that social media happens way faster than we want it to. Information gets spread, maybe some bullying happens, some negative comments, negative information's getting shared, and we can't control what's coming in. So we can really go kind of down negative paths with social media to some extent. We can't control it, what comes through, but we can control what we're looking at. We can protect ourselves if things are being really critical to us or not supportive at all, just downright rude, and really sucking the positive energy out of us. Disengage from that. Disengage and talk to someone face to face where you're not getting that negative response and negative reaction. Reach out and say, hey, this is what's going on. Maybe it's happening to more than one person. But social media, if things are turning really nasty, you really should be telling an adult so then we can get that corrected, but then we can also get those positive messages back into your life. There's multi-parts to that question.
I have a little something I wanted to add to that too, thanks. And just again, like Kim was saying, there's the good and there's the bad. And as an adult, social media is great for keeping up with extended family members, the friends I knew from many, many years ago, and see pictures of their kids, that's great. If I spend all my day focused in on that and looking at everybody else's vacations, that starts getting really unhealthy for me. And it's not any different for teenagers. I think that there's a couple of challenges with the face-to-face stuff. Obviously, these last 2 years have been really difficult on everybody. And so, guess what? Teenagers need to be around other teenagers. They need to hang out. And so for a long time, they weren't able to do that. But I want to kind of pose something also to the adults in the room. I don't know about you guys, but when I was a teenager, I didn't have a cell phone. We hung out at the park, or we hung out at the roller rink, or one of those goofy things that we did a long time ago. Guess what happens when a bunch of teenagers are hanging out at the park now? Some soccer mom is going to call and complain, oh, those kids are hanging out at the park. So we've taken that away from them too. So keep in mind, they need that outlet to socialize. And so again, the social media can get way out of hand. So I think monitoring the time and also just teaching the kids to be self-aware of, hey, how are you feeling? How much time are you on it, and how are you feeling when you're on it? Because if you're throwing yourself into it and you're just starting to feel really bad about yourself, then that's not healthy. But keep in mind, again, it's that contact, and sometimes we do need to break away and have that face-to-face contact and, normal social stuff.
So here's one. Not sure it's a youth, but it may be. It says something we kind of talked about earlier, because it's a fear that's common. If someone is having suicidal thoughts, will they be taken away to a facility even if they don't want to? That's a fear. It happens. That's why people keep it inside.
So it is, and I don't want to say it's normal, but people do have thoughts of suicide. Doesn't mean they're crazy. Doesn't mean that they're going to take their life. But they need to talk to somebody about those thoughts. And that's where they need to get help. Doesn't mean they're going to be locked up. Doesn't mean that they're going to need a treatment program. They may just need somebody to talk therapy. It usually is a fear. But suppressing those is not good. But I want you to know if that's you, if you wrote that question because I'm having these thoughts, am I suicidal? I encourage you to either call the County Access and Crisis Line, contact a therapist, or come up and talk to one of us. Because we want you to get the help you need. Because when you start thinking those thoughts are normal and then you start disengaging from them, then they become dangerous. You want to add anything to that?
So the facilities, I think, that are being referenced here, going to the hospital, that's the highest level of care that we have. It's really reserved for those individuals that are actively trying to take their lives. It's not safe to leave them at home, because if we leave them at home, we're concerned they're not going to be there the next day. So that's the most severe level of intervention. our goal tonight is to help everyone have those conversations, pick up the warning signs so we can start having that discussion and get connected to the care within our community before it does escalate to that point. But if someone does go to a hospital, it's really just for that short-term, immediate, make sure physically they are safe, and that they're not going to actively try and take their life. Our goal is to get you home as quick as possible, and back into the homes where you're loved and have that support.
Okay, kind of like that though, we talked about simple thoughts. So this person wants to know, I hear the term suicidal ideation, and is that different than simple thoughts?
So suicidal is a nice term that kind of sums up having thoughts of suicide. So there's different levels of that, there's different severity, there's frequency, duration. There's a lot that goes into suicidal ideation or those thoughts. So it can be like what Michelle was just saying. Someone can be saying, I wonder if my family would miss me if I'm no longer here anymore. So now that is some suicidal ideation. But has it progressed to a plan? Have you thought about how you're going to try and take your life? Have you actually tried to get the means to do that? Are you stockpiling medication under your bed or in a drawer in your room and keeping that a secret? That then shows that things are progressing just from, hey, what would happen if I'm not here? So there's a big range for that suicidal ideation. But like Michelle's saying, almost everyone probably at some point in their life has contemplated what happens if I'm not here. Are people going to come to my funeral? But if we're saying that because we are really sad, there's a lot of negative things going on in our lives and we feel like we can't live anymore, that's different than, and that's kind of upping that ante.
There's a 4 or so about kind of the same thing, and they're all along the same lines of, how do I approach someone who isn't willing to listen? How do I help someone that I can recognize the signs you're talking about, but they don't listen? What do I do if a friend has admitted they're contemplating suicide, but they don't want to reach out to professionals? Basically, what does your friend do when you're taking our advice and your friend isn't listening? What then?
So I think we should break that down into 2 parts.
Yeah.
So what should we do if someone's not listening? So meaning we're concerned about them, we're going to go have that conversation, and maybe we don't like what their response is. Them knowing that you are wanting to have that conversation, that you see what's going on, that you're caring for them, that's huge. It lets them know, okay, like I'm not hiding this like I think I am from everyone. They actually really care. There's someone who is involved and checking it out. We've all seen the nice commercials where people are walking around with the smiley face on the stick, and then they move it away from a social thing, and they're really sad, and they have, no expression on their face, and they're sad. Well, we know that that's what happens sometimes when people are pretty depressed or they're not feeling well, is they put on that happy face for us, so then maybe we don't ask these questions or we don't really see the pain that they're going through. But you opening up that conversation and saying, I'm here to talk whenever you're ready. Come to me, let me know. But then I think the second part of that question is, well, what if someone is actively having thoughts of suicide? That's different than just having a conversation. We're not going to walk away from someone who's told us they just have a plan of taking their life, okay? That's where you can say to them, hey, I really think we need to get someone else involved. How would you like to do this? Who would you like me to call? And try and see if they're willing to say, okay, we can call my mom, or we can call my coach, or, my pastor, I got their number on speed dial. Okay, let's go with that. But you can be very open and honest with them too and say, I'm not comfortable with maybe not having you in my life anymore. I really think it's important that we get someone else here to make sure you're going to be safe. But now you're being open with them. Nothing secretive on the side. Now you're letting them know everything, full honesty. I really care about you, and I care about you so much that I'm willing for you to be mad at me because I'm going to try and save your life. That's where I think we're at right now. I'll tell you, most people will come back and thank you later on if you're the one making that rough phone call, but it might take them a little while because they're not in a good headspace. It has nothing personally to do with you, but their brain is not thinking right. Their brain is really telling them some negative messaging. So they don't see it as rational as we do. They don't see it as clearly as we do. But you being that supportive person and linking them can make all the difference in that moment, in that day.
A couple more, and I think that's about it. I think we've kind of run the gamut of it as we talk about it. Someone just wanted to know, why do people just do this? And I think we've talked about that tonight, but I think there's more.
Yeah. We started out this whole conversation with the whys, and again, anybody who's lost somebody to suicide, the why is just kind of overwhelm you. And I kind of started drawing a lot of just comparisons to other things in life that kind of carried over. And I think it occurred to me early on that, we live in Southern California. We don't have terrible blizzards here, right? But I've heard stories of people who live in places where they have terrible blizzards. That once in a while, someone will get caught in a blizzard, and they will die because the storm is so thick. Sometimes they die and there's shelter 20 feet away, but the storm was so thick that they don't see that there's shelter there. They don't see that there's safety there. And I think depression can look very much that same way. I think that sometimes people can get, and you have to keep in mind, please, there's a difference between being sad or being bummed out about something and being seriously depressed. Because I think people will get in a state sometimes with that depression that they can't see any good in their lives. The only thing they can see is this dark hole that they're in, and the only thing they can feel is pain, and they just want to get out of the pain. And I think that is where people are sometimes when they move to that step of suicide. And there may be safety right there because they may be living in a house full of people who love them. They may have friends at school who love them, but they're so deep in what's happening in their head that they can't see it, and they give up. I think that's kind of my take on it.
That was great. I love that. We did have one other question, and they wanted to know, how long does it take to get better? Yeah, it's a good one. I wish I had the answer. I don't. And you know what? It's okay to say I don't know. But everybody's journey is everybody else's. It's their own journey. You know, what works for me might not work for my friends. But talking, getting help, asking people to support you, to be those encouragers in your life, that's how you move forward. Now, some days we have days where we move forward 3 steps, and then we're 2 steps back the next day. What we have to remember is we were going forward. Like Brooke was saying about the negative thoughts. We have a lot of negative thoughts. We see a lot of negative on TV, social media, everywhere. We get negative everywhere. And I use this analogy a lot. Many of us do to-do lists. We write a to-do list. And when we don't get the to-do list done, we say, I didn't get my to-do list done. Instead of saying, wow, I did this, this, and this, and this today. You've got to find a positive in every single day. It might just be that I got out of bed today. For the person who's struggling with depression, getting out of bed is difficult. Instead of saying, hey, I didn't take a shower today, got out of bed today. Focus on that positive. Stop focusing on the negative. Focus on the positive. Sit outside for 20 minutes. Just sit outside. 20 minutes in the sunshine will help you fight depression. It won't cure you, but it will help you. Do small things. We don't go out and run a marathon. We do it in small steps. Do the same thing in your life. Give yourself joy over the small victories you have every single day. If you have a huge task, I have an office that needs to be cleaned out. I do it in small tasks. Instead of, because we go in there, we're like, oh, I don't want to deal with this today. But if you say, well, I'm just going to do this drawer today, you can say, I accomplished something today. Count the small victories. They're huge. A lot of people do blessings journals, blessing jars, gratitude journals, thankful jars, whatever. Start writing those blessings down every day. And you will see that there are things to live for. And it's in your own time. You have one more question? I saw it sneak up.
If someone decides to call a suicide helpline, can you be there with them to support them, or should they handle it by themselves?
Ask them what they prefer. Would you like me to be here with you? I'm more than willing to do that with you. They say, no, I got it on my own. Okay, I'll sit outside here. I'll let you have that private conversation, but I'm still going to be here for you.
I have a question for you. How many of you tonight came alone? Wow. Oh, a few of you. Okay. But most of you came with somebody else, right? It's easier to do things with other people. So if I'm talking with a friend and I think they're suicidal and I'm going to say, hey, would you be willing to get some help? Would you let me make a phone call? I don't say, hey, here's the phone number, call it. What I say is, you know what? I'm willing to make that phone call with you. You take scary out of a scary situation. So we want to honor all of your time. We want to thank each and every one of you for coming tonight. We hope that this will help you on your journey to healing. If you are struggling, please, please, please reach out. I will tell you, I don't care if you have a twin brother or twin sister, nobody can ever replace you. Nobody. My brother's got 3 children, not one of them replaces him. Yeah, they each got a little bit of his characteristics, his mannerisms, but they don't replace them. You are not replaceable. If you're struggling tonight, please reach out. We will stick around if people have questions. We know sometimes people have questions or they're like, wait, I really know I need to talk to this person and I don't know how to start that conversation. Come up to us. We'll stick around as long as somebody needs somebody to talk to. All right, we want to thank you all. And God, yes, ma'am. Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Oh, yes. So I did bring some resources. There are some resources out there. I brought our brochure. That talks about us. I did bring the Access and Crisis Line brochure. It does talk about the Access and Crisis Line. But even if you can put it on your wall or give it to a friend, hey, I'd really like to call this with you. I do have 2 different cards out there, and they are the Know the Warning Signs. I like this one because it can fit in your wallet, and that has a national hotline. Some of you may have heard that there's going to be a 3-digit number. That number does not go into effect till July, so don't try calling it now. And for people who want to text, there's a phone number at 741-741. It's the 3 numbers on the outside of your keyboard. Survivors of Suicide Loss, we have 3 major fundraisers during the year. We have a Ride for Life. Anybody here ride a motorcycle? All right. We got some cards out there. We'd love to have you come ride with us. We have a motorcycle ride. We have a walk that is in Balboa Park every year. And it is a healing walk. It is not just for people who've lost someone to suicide. It is for people who are struggling. It's people who want to support a family or just somebody that's like, hey, this is a great cause. I want to go down and do it. I'm going to share it. Last year, we had a gentleman who was thinking about taking his life. And he heard all this music and started getting closer to figure out what was going on. And it was our walk. And that gentleman did not take his life because he saw the impact one death had and all those families that were grieving. So.